Greetings, this is Jared Love, and this video will be about how to use the node editor. I've had a few questions in various past videos where some people are not sure how to actually access various attributes that they're looking for because they don't really show up, in this list kind of a thing. So I just wanted to make this quick little video just to kind of show you. Now, I'm going to be setting up a matrix constraint using Maya 2020's new attribute that they've got, but I'm not really going to explain how everything's working, all that kind of stuff. I'm just really focusing on how to use the node editor. So first off, just to go over navigation inside of it. So inside of the Maya camera views, you will, the same way you use zooming or panning, in that is how you would do that here. So there's panning and zooming, and it's done the same way as in Maya's camera view. So it's pretty easy to make that mental switch. Now, obviously there's no rotation because it's a two-dimensional representation of stuff. It's not a three-dimensional thing. So first thing to cover would be basically how to get nodes into this view. So one way you can do it is to select it and middle mouse drag it and then drop it, so you can do it that way. You can also use these buttons up here, so with it selected you can use the plus icon and it will add it. Now every time you do that, it will make the screen kind of jump a little bit. I don't know why it always does that, but it would be kind of nice if Maya just added it without moving everything or re-zooming or whatever. Something else that can be done is if you have a large network and you're trying to find a specific node, if you select it, you can hit the F key to frame it the same way you would be able to frame it inside of a camera view. And so to create a node, like completely create a new node, you could put your mouse over this window anywhere, hit tab, and it will bring up this little text field. So anywhere you put your mouse, when you hit tab, that's where it's going to show up. So you can start typing in here. I'm going to bring in a molten matrix node. So as you see, it'll start listing nodes that match what you're typing in. And you can use the arrow keys to go up and down to locate the node you want. When you find it, you hit enter and it will create that node. Another thing you can do with that is if I type in molt M, you see that the only node left is molt matrix. If I hit enter at this point, even though I'm not finished typing it out, it will still create the node. So you don't actually have to arrow down and select it. As soon as you get to a point where that's the only node, or if it's the top node that's showing, it will create that node. So good times, good to know. Now to show the attributes that are on it, you basically use this little icon over here on the side, and as you see, it'll kind of cycle through different attributes representations of what's on it. Now in some cases there will be a plug that you're looking for that it's not there. You're like, oh, I can't find it. So a couple of ways to locate it would be clicking on your input side, going to other, and then you'll be able to see all of the inputs that are there. Matrix in is the one I'm going to be looking for. So one way to connect to it obviously is to locate the attribute you're looking for. So in this case, the world matrix, and then you would drag it over and connect it into an attribute that's there. If it's not there, you can right click on this and go to show all attributes. So in this case, it brings up the one I'm looking for, which is matrix in. So you can just you can click here, you can click and let go, or click and hold and then drag and then click over here. If you're doing a drag, when you connect it over here, you see it kind of like has a little magnetic catch, and then when you let go of the mouse, it will make the connection. So to quickly sever a connection, you can either select it and hit delete, or you can hold shift and alt and then draw a line over it. So you see how the icon looks like a little X-Acto knife? So that'll cut that connection, sever it for you. Okay, so once you've made a connection to an attribute that you had to use show all attributes to get, when you collapse this and then open it back up again, that attribute will remain there, so it's easier to locate it. I'm going to go into this view just so I can have that matrix sum to easily connect out. So another way to do this would be to click on the output button and look for, in this case, I'm looking for world inverse matrix, and then you click on it and it will create your new, well, it doesn't create, but it will connect that to that particular attribute. So another thing about this button here is you can use your 1, 2, 3, and 4 keys to cycle through those. If you have no node selected in your node editor and you use it, it will do it to all the nodes in the view. And you can do that same thing I was doing there with the input as well. So you just go to other and then find offset matrix or offset parent matrix. So when I made that connection, you saw that the cube kind of jumped, and that's because it's now, doing that constraint connection like I was talking about. So okay, so something else you'll probably need to do at some point would be to do some graph traversal to see how things are connected. So if I say I grab this cube and I add that into my graph, then say I don't want the shape node, I can remove it with the minus icon. And say I want to know what is coming into it. Now there's over here a traversal depth, which basically means how far it's going to map the connection. So if you change it here, it will actually map out everything. Since I wasn't necessarily intending to do that, I'm just going to add this back in, remove that. And then with -1, that means it's infinite. So it will continue tracing connections to infinity until it reaches a point where there is no additional incoming or outgoing connection on that particular node. So what I like to do is set it to 1. And you see how it brought in just the single connection of what's driving that cube. Now, it's also pulling in the shape and what it's being driven by and what it's driving, or just what it's connected to, basically on one node depth either way. I'm going to remove these again and just focus on this. So there is one option up here that I want you to be aware of, this additive graph mode. I tend to work with this on all the time anyway, because what it allows me to do is, say I grab this guy and then I want to see what is driving this, I can then click my input button and it will show that. But you could say if it was set to not have additive graph mode on, as soon as I click this input, it removes my node that was going output. So if I'm trying to trace through connections and locate a specific pathway of information that's flowing through the attributes, I always want to be able to maintain what's there and keep it. So this button here with the arrow going into it is graphing the input connections. The one with the arrow going out is graphing the output connections. And then this is graphing both input and output. So if I mean, it's pretty self-evident, but boom. So you got all the nodes of that connection. Sometimes, now in this particular case, since this is so small, we're just talking about 4 nodes that are connected, and it's very easy to see how they're connected there. If you have, say, 50 nodes that you're trying to go through and kind of untangle, because this can become a big, huge spaghetti mess of stuff, just depending on where you've got stuff laid out and you're connecting it. So as you are going through that traversal and adding nodes, so let's just say if I start with this cube and I wanted to trace the input connections, once I have that, I might want to actually pin these nodes, which I can do by pressing the P key. So you see this little pin icon, it makes it to where it's not going to move anywhere it makes it so that it stays where you put it as far as its relationship to other nodes. So then I can grab this guy and I can graph its inputs, and it won't redraw where everything is located. So sometimes that can be helpful. Like I said, it's hard to show in this particular case because it's such a small example, but just be aware of that because it can help you. Because say, let's take the pinning off of these guys real quick. Let's say, let's just take these and let's say for whatever reason I liked this, here like this. Without pinning, If I grab this guy and do the output, it redraws the whole graph, which can be annoying if you have spent a little bit of time positioning nodes to where it's very clear and easy for you to follow, and you can kind of just look at it at a glance and tell what's connected how and where. So it makes it difficult when it redraws everything, especially if you have a particular section lined out where it's easy to understand for you how it's laid out. So just to show kind of the same sort of thing with pinning, if I grab this guy again and do the output, you see it does not move these guys from how they're displayed with each other. Now this error you see here, manage attribute have no data values. I don't exactly know why it does that every once in a while, but if you mouse over an attribute on here, sometimes it will pop up that error. It's really a non-error, so I don't know what internally is happening. Just be aware, it's nothing to worry about because those attributes are there and it'll still connect and everything correctly. So honestly, I think that's about it, really. You can just kind of go through these options and look at the different things there. You can create bookmarks, which is basically just like a, hey, I've got this awesome layout of how this node network's set up, and I want to kind of keep that. Tabs, you can create new tabs just by pushing this button here, and so you could have a completely different graph layout for, like, maybe you have the leg rig laid out in one and you have an arm in another, a spine in another, stuff like that. So yeah, that really should be enough to get you going. I hope you found this video useful and have a blessed day.